Yep. I said it before and I'll say it again.
That last scene.
What does it mean?
I'm the dude, you know?
Get the fuck out of here.
No, I cannot. It's over. Go home. That final scene
starts now.
Portions of the following ABC special program have been pre-recorded.
This is the plaza of the Music Center in Los Angeles, California, where these crowds have been gathering since early morning to watch the arrival of Hollywood's most glamorous stars for tonight's ceremony, like lovely Elizabeth Taylor in silk chiffon over Arnell Georgette, Art Carney, winner of an Oscar last year for Tonto and Me, glamorous Jennifer O'Neill, Margot Hemingway wearing red and white Portrell matte jersey, George Burns, Best Supporting Actor, Sunshine Boy.
Oh, and look, there goes Simon Haines in a dashing dinner jacket. But enough of the red carpet. It's the best final scene Oscar prediction special. Please welcome your host, Sophie, and two men called Simon.
Wow! Welcome to That Final Scene, the podcast where we explore the most iconic final scenes in movie history. I'm your host, Sophie, joined by my co-host, Simon.
Hello.
Ben wasn't able to join us today because he's been dealing with a very nasty cough. So it's a shame because you won't be able to represent Ireland today. However, we have someone else very special joining us today on this episode. Please welcome the incredible, talented Simon. Simon is laughing. He's next to me. He's like Simon Haines. No. I feel like you were probably like quite, surprised by the intro.
I love the intro. The intro is great. Full marks and effort. And also, I've got a comment that you're in a sort of Simon sandwich here.
That is true. Elephant in the room. I have both Simons next to me. I think we need to come up with some sort of convention in terms of how I'm going to refer to you for
Do you have a nickname that you like to go by? Simon too.
We could do Simon P, Simon H.
Call me whatever you like, Sophie.
Okay. Cool. So, Simon, I mean...
By the way, that intro, the 1976
That's
Oscars,
what I was going to ask. Yeah, tell us more about...
So the big films that year were Jaws, which cleaned up, and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which also cleaned up.
When you say cleaned up, you mean Best Picture?
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest got Best Actor, Jack Nicholson, Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Screenplay.
Wow.
And then Jaws won Best Editing, Best Sound Mixing, and Best Score.
Interesting. Okay, well, today we're actually going to be talking about Oscar predictions. So we thought it would be great to have someone on the podcast who can actually act and tell us a thing or two about the craft of acting so they can help us shape our predictions for the Academy show. We are also recording this on the 17th of February, so we don't know the BAFTA winners yet. That's this Sunday. So if you hear us talking about them like we've been living under a rock, this is why. Thank you very much. All right, so let's kick off with a quick intro. Simon H. What would you like our listeners to know about you? Like, how would you describe yourself?
I guess professionally, I describe myself as an actor and also writer, director, and producer. Just as many of the job titles as I can.
I mean, that sounds very hard to me. So, I mean, for context, Simon and I met at a Rain Dance Halloween party almost 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you were dressed as Carey Mulligan in, what's the film called?
Promising Young Woman, Cassie. Young Woman. And you were dressed as Harry Potter.
As Harry Potter. I think you won first prize, didn't you? You put a lot of effort into that.
I did. I invested in it. Like every single year, I invest heavily into a Halloween costume. I don't know why. Don't ask.
Whereas I was wearing sort of my blackout blind as my cloak.
However, I've also seen you act. You know,
Yes.
Do you remember I saw you in that theater production for Straight White Men?
Oh, no. I was so embarrassed because I went out to the bar afterwards. And I usually just pop my head out and check that I haven't got anyone in that I wasn't expecting. And I was like, great, no one's in. So I went off to another opening night of a show that I'd helped cast to have a drink with them. Oh, dear.
So unprofessional.
Oh, my God.
I can't have these actors
Directors
on.
To be edited out of this. Anyway, and then it turns out there was a Q&A. And you were in the Q&A with Jimmy, and I was so embarrassed. But
What, because it was like you were having to bear all in front of people that...
I didn't go to the Q&A. I ducked out of the Q&A because I hate doing them.
Yeah.
And then I totally forgotten that Sophie and Jimmy were coming to that show to see it. But she's forgiven me, and I'm still here in her beautiful
What, so
flat.
you ran off and left your mates at the Q&A that you didn't even attend?
He didn't even know. That's the thing. He didn't even remember, actually. But, the Q&A was fine. It would have been better with you.
3 stars.
No, like we have quite a few people coming to us saying, oh my God, I don't need to spend 20 minutes on Netflix anymore because I come to your podcast because I know you can recommend a good film or a good show, and that's it. And I don't have to waste like 20 minutes every single day to find something decent on Netflix. Now, I'm not going to be very helpful this week because I haven't seen anything remotely interesting, but I was gonna pass it over to you guys to do
Can
the
I butt in, Sophie, though, and
Yeah.
say how much I'm enjoying it was originally a film a day challenge.
It's going, it's still going.
It's so great seeing your reviews on your stories each day, and generally it's so helpful going like, great, I won't watch that. Oh, I need to watch that. I'm loving it. How's it going?
Thank you. It's going well. I found what this means is that I get to watch less TV. Less TV shows, because I can do one film a day after work, but that means I'm very behind on every single show that I'm watching.
So maybe next year, one series a day or something.
That would be insane.
I thought you were going to say, I'm very behind on my washing, my dishwashing.
I mean, her personal hygiene is so bad.
If you're working from home, that's so easy to do, and especially when you're on your own. So like, I do laundry when I'm between emails. You know what I mean? Like, it's so easy for me. So I'm quite privileged in that sense. But yeah, I usually do my film a day after work. That said, sometimes what I found, which I know some of our listeners have said, it's quite helpful as a different way of experiencing a film, watching it first thing in the morning.
Can we submit ideas?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah, please. Like, if you're listening, please send recommendations. Even though, because following the news of Bruce Willis's dementia, I've been contemplating going through his filmography for the next couple of weeks, and I'm sure he's done a bunch of bad stuff. But also, like, I was thinking we could do The Sixth Sense for our next episode, Pulp Fiction, Die Hard. Like, it's just done so many incredible films. So I think this is how I'm going to approach it from now on, because I think when you're focusing on a certain actor or director, you get a lot more context in terms of like, oh, these are the decisions this person made in their career. So,
well, speaking of expert script selection in a career, I've been focusing on Arnold Schwarzenegger's canon. And I watched Commando, which is pretty deep. I really, really enjoyed it. It's like a massive guilty pleasure.
No shame.
There's one-liners such as this.
Remember, Sally, when I promised to kill you last?
That's right, Major. You did.
I lied.
And then also very deep moments such as this.
Fuck you, asshole. Fuck you, asshole.
What a bird.
I mean, I want to... Can you do an Arnold Schwarzenegger song?
Yeah, I mean...
What's that line he says? You need to get to the chopper or something?
We need to get to the chopper.
We need to get to the... No, I can't.
Yeah, so I watched Commando, and I find it so funny. But the reason why I brought it up is that I discovered that someone on YouTube has made a musical of Commando, and it's exquisite. And I've got it here.
You know, the two of us, we are the closest living out here. Jenny and me putting ice cream on each other's noses.
This is gonna go straight to our show notes.
Jenny and me, we were going to build a normal life here, a carefree existence of laughter and play. But General Kirby, he led them right to us, and then the bastards took her away.
It's so well edited.
John, it's your old friend Bennett. I thought you were dead. Not true, John. If you want your daughter,
Completely
better play along. Fuck you, John.
There are some great Arnie films. Is it Junior? And Emma Thompson is in one of them as well, which I had no idea.
Wow.
One of them, he's, if I'm remembering this right, to be honest, I'm probably mixing up 7 different Arnie cheesy comedies. But in one, he's pregnant.
Oh, yes.
That's with Dan DeVito.
Yeah.
That's with Dan
okay.
DeVito.
And then there's
Yeah.
one called Twins with Danny DeVito.
That's right.
Is it Twins?
Yes, yeah.
Is it? Okay. I mean, I think he's a fun comic actor. This is based on me watching them as a child. So probably now.
Because I wanted to ask you, like, the reason why I think he's really interesting is because you could easily write him off as a slate of vacuous films. But actually, the script selection looks quite strategic to me. Is that a big thing that you think about as an actor in terms of like when you're picking projects, if you even get the chance to pick them?
I think you're spot on with what you say about when or if you get the chance to pick work. I've definitely said no to things, but certainly when you're at the stage that Arnie was at after, was it Conan? Was that his first big thing?
Oh, Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah. Ben Kingsley, when he won the Oscar for Gandhi, he said he got 300 plus scripts sent to him in the year after as offers. And he chose to do one of them, which was a play about an actor who I can't remember the name of. Maybe it was Garrick or Keane or something like that. And it was by a first-time writer that had been sent to him. So he was very selective. I think Jeremy Irons, on the other hand, after Lolita, do you remember Lolita, where he plays a paedophile, who we're sort of led to empathise with? That's sort of the setup of the film, at least as I understood it. And he found he had a sort of, the opposite, where no one wanted to touch it because it was like, I was that creepy, kiddie fiddler. So yeah, I think it depends on where you're at and what stage you are. But yeah, it's no is one of the big things that we've got as an actor in terms of control over our career. And having a good team around you, I think, is, he's not going to be making those decisions on his own. But
in the early days, wouldn't he, though?
No, because he's got agents, he's got managers who are saying to him, look, you've been offered this, but don't. I mean, I know some horror stories about agents where they've withheld information from the client about things they've been offered.
So the actor doesn't even know that that's on the table.
Yeah, I can't give details, but I know stories about big actors where they've then re-met the director at a party and the director said, oh, it's such a shame you couldn't do this. And the actor's like, what do you mean? The actor wasn't even told by the agent they were offered the lead role in this thing. But there's actors like Ian McKellen, who I know, I think I've heard him say he never wants to do the same thing twice. And so he is pretty, he's a little bit coy about it, but he was offered Dumbledore, basically, after already having played Gandalf. He says that his agent got a call and it was like, Harry Potter want to offer you something. Are you interested? And this was just after Richard Harris had died. And he was like, well, there's only really one elderly man available. And he said no to it. And he says that the reason he said no is partly because Richard Harris didn't think much of him as an actor. He'd sort of been quite publicly rude about him, saying, Ian McKellen's a bit of a hack or whatever. Oh. But I think also for him, it was a thing of like, well, I've already done one wizard. Time for something else. So
I had enough of this elven behaviour. So what have you been perusing recently?
Oh, you know what? Well, I've been watching a lot of Oscar films because when Sophie and I first chatted about me being here, I was like, right, I'm going to watch as much as I've tried to, but then I've been super busy, which is sort of amazing. There's some stuff there's something that I'm directing and producing that is in prep. Something that I produced and acted in, which has been going out to festivals and has been winning awards, I must say, which has been quite exciting.
Yeah, I was going to say, what can you share?
I mean, I can share it with you.
Yeah.
It's this little film called Dance With Me that we shot. It was sort of just as we were coming out of the pandemic, and we shot it in like an afternoon. It was really sort of like, let's just make something, and we did. And then the very first thing we entered it for, it won, and then it went and screened at Raindance in a really rough cut, and so now we're sending it out to festivals and stuff. So that's been sort of quite satisfying. And I've also been working on this project, which I can't talk about at the moment, which is very, very exciting, but it's super top secret. One day, hopefully, in the next couple of years, I'll be able to tell you what it is. So I haven't been able to watch as many films as I wanted to. However, I think there's one that I've got to give a shout out to, which I watched sort of recently, called Our Father, the Devil, or, ready for my French, Mon Père le Diable. So it's a French language film, but made by an incredible American filmmaker, Elie Fumbi. Disclaimer, who is a friend of mine. However, this film, you know the Indie Spirit Awards?
Yeah.
So it's the nominees for Best Feature this year.
So the Spirit Awards are the equivalent of Oscars for indie films.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so now I'm going to read you a list of independent films. Bones and All.
Yeah.
Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah.
Tar. Women Talking. And then Our Father the Devil. So it's this incredible... Right. Anyway, so when it comes out, I can't remember what Ellie said to me about distribution lately, so I won't talk to that. But when it's out, Our Father the Devil is sort of my one to watch. It premiered at Venice, or had a screening in Venice in an early cut. Incredible film. It's a sort of revenge story. It's set after a civil war in an African nation that isn't specified in the film. I think it's Guinea. And then years later, this young woman who's been a child soldier is working as a chef in like a nursing home. And then a new priest comes to sort of talk to the old people, and she instantly recognizes that this guy is the commander of the child soldiers when she was there, and that he had obviously committed loads of atrocities, including towards her. And so she's faced with this dilemma about what does she do. And it's incredible performances, an amazing film. So watch that. But then in terms of TV, me and my girlfriend watched Broadchurch season 1 recently. Which is apparently is a decade old.
I've never watched the Broadchurch.
You haven't?
Oh. Is it the period drama?
No, it's not.
I mean, it's not on
It's ITV. It's ITV, yeah.
ITV.
It's David Tennant and it's Olivia Colman, who I remember being a total revelation at the time to me. I knew her from Mitchell & Webb Look, where she was doing like on Number Wang and sort of doing the silly whatever. And I think she might have done Tyrannosaur before
Peep
this.
Show.
Peep Show, of course. But I still think this is her best performance ever, because it's a beautiful mix of comedy and it's also really grounded, and we haven't had what I call the Olivia Colman fatigue, which I sort of got, because I think she says somewhere that she just would say yes to everything because she was terrified she'd never work again. And so it was a thing of like, okay, it's Olivia again. I've seen this already, but Broadchurch, it just blew me away.
Is there anything that she can't pull off? Everything she turns her hand to, it's excellent.
I've never seen her anything that feels off to me. I've been hearing mixed reviews about Empire of Light, but I don't know if that's her.
Maybe we'll talk about it later. But I think she's fantastic.
Maybe she's great. I think the film itself doesn't work quite well from what I've heard from people, but. Yeah, she's just great. But you're right, like she's one of those rare actors that can pull drama and comedy quite equally.
And she's apparently one of those incredible actors that a lot of us are envious of, where it's like the job for her is to not cry. She has to work really hard to not cry. Apparently when she was in The Crown playing Queen Elizabeth, it was like, cut, Olivia, you can't cry. And I don't know if this is true, but I think she said that she had to like have a little earpiece and listen to the shipping forecast, the Radio 4, like boring details about it. Yeah, so that she wouldn't cry, so she could sort of zone out a bit as Liz. Aww. And then the other thing is Happy Valley.
I was hoping to. I haven't seen this, but
we need to talk about this because I like someone. I mean, maybe Simon. Like you need to bring me up to date with what's going on because I am pretty sure I've seen 2 seasons of Happy Valley. Okay. What happened? Did it take like a very long break?
I think it did.
Because I watched one when I was like a teenager.
I was gonna say, I watched 2 seasons when I was back in Greece. That was 6 years ago.
I think it's a long time.
So it came back now.
I think it's come back.
Okay.
The actors look slightly older,
right?
And I think they've gone and had different careers and done different things and come back to it. But I didn't watch any of it. And then my mates have been raving about it. It's been all over Twitter. So we thought we would give a try to episode 1. And
episode 1, like season 1.
Episode 1, season 1. Yeah. And honestly, we didn't like it. Ooh. We thought it was a bit obvious, but we didn't love it. And then there was a moment at the end of the first episode where suddenly the plot gets going. And actually the situation, I think, is really gripping. And that really elevates it so far. But maybe it's one of those things where it's a slow build, or maybe it's just not for me because honestly, it's super intense.
So the latest episode, the latest season, is it season 3 or 4?
I guess season 3.
Have you
I'm
got
not
up
sure.
to the very finale?
No. And
Okay,
I
you've
don't
only
think
seen...
we're going to keep watching because I just think we found it a bit like, oh my God, this is basically a young woman is kidnapped and held hostage. And one of the guys holding her hostage is someone who's a rapist. And it's a lot. It's a lot to watch for me. So I think we're going to watch something fun instead.
I have a feeling because Happy Valley did a comeback with this final season. I reckon has no connection to the previous seasons.
Oh really? I thought it all carried on.
Well, it came back 10 years later. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like
I presume Happy Valley was one big story.
It's definitely the two leads are the same.
The two leads are the same, but the last season was at least 6 years ago when, I was still in Greece because I remember that. So it could be like a different story, like same, detectives and everything, but I don't think there's...
the story, it's not like, how do they handle time in it?
It's like Luther. Well, maybe like they came back or they're still active on duty. I don't know what's the story. So I am going to watch it because you're right, like Simon, like I've seen so much chatter about Twitter and how it's been incredible. So I'm curious to see that. But at the same time, it's tricky because when it comes to TV, I think you need the perfect, at least I do, need a balance between super difficult, creeping, even traumatic television. Like I can do that much easier compared to films. But then I think you need your casual, like guilty pleasure sort of show. Like Dairy Girl from you, like it's this one show I keep going back to right now. My service is really good.
I wonder what you two think about. I find it much easier to watch a film that I know is going to be really, like for instance, Till, which I'm sure we'll talk about soon, in terms of the awards. I find it easier to watch a film like Till than I would do to watch a series about that same subject because of the drawn, that 40 hours of, Game of Thrones or whatever. I watched the pilot and I was like, I just can't be in this world for, 5-6 seasons. It's too traumatic. Everyone is against each other. But if you asked me to go and see the film of it, I'd be like, okay, I can do 2 hours of that. What's it like for you two?
I hear you. I think I am a bit more sold on something that I know it's going to be a limited series of 6 episodes maybe, which is why I felt like very strongly about I May Destroy You and Fleabag, where like, again, both of them tackle very difficult subjects, but they're not going to have a very long shelf life. I agree with you. Like Game of Thrones was very traumatic for me. Like everyone's like, can you just watch the like whatever prequel? I'm like, I don't want to watch incest anymore.
But I think there's a bit of a theme coming up, which is, we talked about Olivia Colman.
Yeah.
And the comedy. And then if you watch the film Tyrannosaur, Paddy Considine film with Peter Mullen, incredible film and so dark. And she's amazing in it. Michaela, who her first TV thing was Chewing Gum, and she was
Chewing Gum's excellent. Yeah.
Well, she was which is a super bright comedy, and she was at drama school with me. She was in 3rd year when I was in first year. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So I remember seeing the very original incarnation of Chewing Gum. It was called Chewing Gum Dreams, and it was what we did. We could do in 3rd year a solo project, which was like a 20-minute, you write your own one-person show. It was amazing. But she was a real master of not only the light, but the dark and that sort of balance there. And I think Zendaya's got it as well. I think,
Zendaya's the Disney star that's now made it as the lead protagonist.
I mean, she's so great my nieces made me watch one of the Spider-Man films and I thought she was brilliant. It's just so funny and, on the nose and not on the nose, like on the line with like earnest and solid and charismatic.
Her facial expressions are insane.
But she's like dramatically apparently amazing in Euphoria, right? So I don't know if there's something about like if you can master both of them rather than just being even like Arnie to bring it back. Looking forward to Arnie's Oscar nomination next year, maybe.
What's this?
It's a movie.
No!
Oh, I liked it.
No!
Can I say something?
No!
I don't get it.
What don't you get about it?
Awesome. So the Oscars are just around the corner. They're taking place on March 13th this year. So we thought this is a perfect time to hear predictions from our listeners and also lock ours in. So, I mean, Simon P., I know you have thoughts on the Oscars and award ceremonies in general. So, I mean, I feel like we all do. We all know that kind of bullshit, but please bear with us for a few minutes as we go through them.
I want to understand from you. I don't even know how it works. Like, how did the Oscars even get decided? I don't even know that.
Do know how it works.
Simon H., go on, please.
So it's the American Academy, and the same for the BAFTAs. There's the Academy, and you get asked to become a member of the Academy. I mean, you can apply, I guess, and then say I'm a costume designer. In the first round, where we're looking to nominate, I can nominate costume designers and no one else except for best feature. So that's the nominations. So already that's quite interesting, right? Because you, as a costume designer, I've got a really good eye and I'm going, the costume design of this was absolutely fantastic. But then when it comes to the winners, everyone in the Academy can vote on every category. So from all the people who've got amazing taste on costumes, then it's just, me who's just an actor or whatever being like, oh yeah, I loved Tar, so I'm going to vote for Tar. Yeah, I like the costumes. So it's an interesting, strange, particular thing. Yeah.
And how well balanced / diverse is the group of people that are in the gang that can do the voting?
Not very. It's very old and white and male and heterosexual. And they've been working, haven't they, over the last few years to like make it more representative of the entire world rather than just a very, very rich, tiny, privileged proportion of the world. So it's getting more diverse, but it's still pretty skewed.
But the thing is, this isn't to me. This isn't about cinema. It's about the industry. To me, these are industry leading people working in the industry, promoting their friends, promoting the people that could potentially get them the next gig. So it's a very flawed, like, it's almost like, I mean, because I work for an agency, like in the ad world. So I know this is very much like a very flawed system where we have our own awards, where it's like patting each other on the back.
Yeah.
And it's like, where is the actual progress? I hear Simon's point of view in terms of like, we can celebrate progress, but at the same time, I feel like it's a bit superficial in that sense. Yeah. Or it can't be. And maybe maybe this is a time like for you and I, like Simon, to talk about to Leslie and Andreas Riseborough's nomination, because that nomination came out of nowhere. So for Best Actress, as you said, Danielle or Viola were almost locked for that fifth spot. So like 4 of them were pretty much like in. So Michelle Yeoh, Kate Blanchett, Michelle Williams, and...
Well, the Michelle Williams thing is really interesting because apparently there was a decision made by, I don't know if it was Michelle or the team on The Fabelmans, to put her for Best Actress rather than Best Supporting.
Yeah.
Which was sort of bizarre because the film's not about her at all. The film's about the Sammy, who's Steven Spielberg, but Sammy Fabelman, Steven Spielberg. So I would say the ones that were the dead certs were Viola, Danielle, Kate, and Michelle. And then that sort of 5th spot was up for grabs. But then Michelle Williams comes into Best Actor, Best Actress. Who knows why? What's the idea behind that? Because she's never going to beat Kate Blanchett. I don't know. Maybe someone thought, there was a chance that she's going to beat Kate or Michelle to that. Who knows? But then, the 5th spot, Andrea Riseborough.
Came out of nowhere. So To Leslie is like an indie film. It was shot in less than a month. It's on Prime right now. So if you want to go rent it, go do that now. In my opinion, the performance is incredible.
I loved her performance.
Yes,
I thought
it was
fantastic.
devastating. It was fantastic.
And I loved the film actually as well. I don't know what you thought about it.
And I love the film. It does follow like a very specific trope, but at the same time, I didn't mind that. Like, you knew what you were getting yourself into.
It did surprise me though as well. I don't want to sort of say too much and spoil it for people, but it didn't go where I thought it was going to go.
Okay.
More than once. I was like, oh, okay. I thought we were going in a very dark direction, and we've ended up somewhere slightly different.
This is about a woman who's struggling with alcohol and drugs, and it's a redemption story of someone who's dealing with alcohol and drug abuse, right? So you're right, like Simon, like it goes in a way that you don't expect it to necessarily, but at the same time, you know what you're getting yourself into when you're watching that film. So it was very interesting because no one had heard about this film prior to the Oscar nominations. And then the bizarre thing that happened is that 20 to 15 days before the Oscars get nominated, there is this storm of A-listers, Ben Stiller, Edward Norton, Kate Winslet, fuck knows who else.
Gwyneth Paltrow, Helen Hunt, Edward Norton.
Every single white actor that's, like, leading the business.
What, and these
now.
guys are all like pushing this film
on social media.
They're going on Twitter and they're like, oh my God, Andrea, like, you guys, this is the performance of the decade. You need to watch this film.
Do you think it just went viral amongst the actor community, or do you think there was something more?
No. Well,
it?
we can only speculate, I guess, because we don't know what actually happened. But long story short, this sort of sprint of people of like A-listers raving about Andrea's performance landed her a nomination. That has never happened before in the history of Oscars. Zero marketing budget about this film. No one knows about this film.
So do you think it was organic, or do you think there was something else at play?
My theory is that because these people, this very small group of people have so much power, we're able to push that nomination forward. Because from what I've heard and from what I've read before, people that vote for the Oscars actually don't even watch the films that they're voting for. This was the hot ticket for the year, as in, oh my God, let me come across as like this cool person that has seen this underground performance that no one has heard about because Edward Norton talked about it. So it was almost like an entry of you as an actor, or producer, or director to come across more intellectual in the kind of industry, because this was an objectively incredible performance. But there was this sort of drama going on about Andrea orchestrating this whole thing and how she started calling her A-list like Hollywood friends, and she was the one responsible for kicking Viola and Danielle out of the spot, like the fifth spot. So I don't think it's fair. I don't think Andrea would do that. She's not interested in doing anything like that. It's more of a, I don't know, like I feel like it's more representative of where the actors and how the Academy works, really.
There's a few other things that I've sort of seen. I should say I know one of the producers of the film. I did a short with him last year. I haven't really talked to him about it. But one of the things that's come up as well is that Viola and Danielle, where was the movement for them? Where all of their rich white friends were saying that, and when it wasn't happening, and maybe that was just because everyone thought, well, they're a shoo-in. There's no way, they're not going to get nominated. But well, this is what the result. Michael Morris, I think the director, I think is very popular and well liked. And I think one of the first things that comes out is Helen Hunt, posting on Instagram, my friend Michael has done this. And we should also say that people like Gwyneth Paltrow were organising screenings for Academy members of the film. One of the stories I was reading today, and there's a podcast about it that I think you can track down if you follow through the links on the BBC articles, is someone saying that there was nothing organic about this movement. And Andrea Riseborough's manager is very influential and very popular. And it's a campaign. Yeah. And campaigning is maybe something, Sophie, that you could talk about. I don't know if you want to talk about.
It's a very unconventional campaign. I don't even know, like for me, like, I don't know, taking a step back, it feels like a accident, but I could also see it being a campaign that will be used from now onwards, and how
become a theme.
Yeah, become a theme. Like, this is a very different way of approaching Oscar campaigning, which traditionally has been landing every single TV spot, doing SNL, like Jimmy Fallon, like it just, going on every single podcast out there. And Andrea did none of these things. It just went to the source, which is the voters. I mean, if this is what actually happened. So if it was a campaign, I find it very smart. And I cannot commend to her for that. It's just a shame that it was, like the Black actresses that took the cut, as opposed to lesser deserving actresses, like, in my opinion, Michelle Williams for The Fabelmans, which didn't deserve that spot.
Yeah, I think she should have been in Best Supporting.
Yeah.
And that's a real. I agree. I think it's a real shame how it's worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So I want us to kick off with a voice note that we got from our listener, Grant. So Grant also dropped us...
Wait, is this Grant from last week?
Yes. So I was going to say, so Grant also dropped us a voice note.
Bloody hell, Grant.
He got a lot of traction for his Scorsese comment. So let's give him some slack. Because he basically, he started his voice note by saying that Martin Scorsese is overrated. but then he went on to say that he's very influential, like he's done some great stuff as well. So I want to give the full context. So
I've got a question for Grant in a minute.
All right, okay, awesome.
Yo, pick up the phone. What's up?
We just got a ping from the burner phone.
There's a significant amount of explosive in the trash receptacle next to you.
Sophie, you wanted predictions? I have them for you. I have a feeling that Everything Everywhere All at Once will win Best Picture. It's getting some crazy push right now, and it seems like momentum is unstoppable. However, I would like Banshees of Inisherin to win, just because I think it's an incredibly crafted story. I think Spielberg will win Best Director because the Academy love him, and he hasn't won for a while. Brendan Fraser will win Best Actor. Cate Blanchett, Best Actress. Ke Huy Quan will win Best Supporting Actor. Angela Bassett will win for Black Panther or Wakanda Forever. Banshees of Inisherin will win Best Original Screenplay. And Top Gun Maverick will win Best Adaptation. However, I would like Martin McDonagh to win Best Director. Paul Mescal to win Best Actor. Cate Blanchett to win Best Actress. Barry Keoghan to win Best Supporting Actor. I would say Best Supporting Actress, Carrie Condon. She kind of is the moral center for that film as well. Original Screenplay, Everything, Everywhere, Everything All at Once. And Best Adapted Screenplay, Women Talking. Sarah Polley, very accomplished filmmaker and screenwriter. And hope they get something for that too. It's a great film.
It's an accomplishment in cinema, though. Everything Everywhere. I think that's the main argument for me, that even if it didn't touch many people or it came across as very wild. Yeah.
My question for Grant, while I remember it, is, Grant, what do you think of Joanna Hogg, who Martin Scorsese has been producer or executive producer on many of her films and is obsessed with her? Really interested to hear what you think of Joanna Hogg and what anyone thinks of, the Souvenirs. Hopefully there's not a part 3 coming. I think part 1 and part 2 have covered it.
Let's stop it. Part 2.
Well, maybe there's a prequel. But this, I think, is, then there's the thing of like, one, what does best mean? What does Best Picture mean? And also, like, we're talking about voting here, right? So, I mean, there's, I think, is there 10, 2, 4, 6,
I think going
8,
back
10
to, going back to the definition, because I had a, I looked it up. They do translate it as extraordinary or outstanding. Maybe that's the word they used, achievement in cinema. So for me, it's like going above and beyond in cinematic achievement.
And that's it. So I remember there's a moment with 1917 where I thought 1917 was going to win the Oscar in the year, which, Sophie, hopefully you can remember who won the Oscar that year. But 1917 was one of those things where it did win the Oscar for cinematography, and the achievement was amazing, right? But there's this thing of like, how are people voting? What are they voting for? There's taste, of course. But then there's also, for me, I loved 1917, but I did not want it to win because it felt like it was a technical film. Do you know what I mean? It was
the technical prowess was excellent.
Yeah.
But it didn't connect in a way that was new and inventive and hadn't been seen before or in a while.
And also, like we talked a little bit earlier about pre-recording about people vote with their hearts and with emotion. And I think Academy voters I think, like all of us, are snobby. And
So wait, they are voting with their emotion, or they're not? Are they?
I think we do
calculated?
vote emotionally in terms of like some films, like we'll be like, oh no, we can't give it to that.
Oh, emotionally in terms of snobby emotion.
Yeah, I think so. I think that comes into it, and I also think there's the thing that used the phrase like a sort of tribute Oscar that. And a few actors have talked about this. Jeremy Irons said that he doesn't think that really he won the Oscar for Reversal of Fortune, that he won it for a film that he did the year before called Dead Ringers, where he plays two twins. For me, A Single Man was the performance for me that was really Oscar worthy. But he didn't win it for that. He won it for the sort of more classically Academy voter appealing one, the sort of tricksy, you're playing someone with some sort of stammer, or playing a historical figure. Like Lincoln, wins.
Yeah, biopics.
Yeah. Think about this. Like, if it was a choice between two films, so let's say it was a choice between Triangle of Sadness and Top Gun Maverick, then we've got a very different contest. But it's not. It's a choice between 10 films. So as has happened in this country, where the vote of people who are sort of on the left has been very split for a long time. And there's people who want Brexit, and there's people who don't want Brexit. And I think we're going to have a different thing at the next election. But the crowd who are going to love Banshees of Inisherin, Tar, Triangle of Sadness, Women Talking, All Quiet on the Western Front, where's their vote going to go? It's not all going to go to one film. And if it did, that film would win probably. But it's going to be sort of split. And then the same maybe with the more, mainstream populist taste of like, I don't think people are going to be voting for Avatar, because I think there's that snobbery around it, from the Academy.
Like, if there was one popular film that were to win, I agree with Grant that it would be Top Gun Maverick. That would be. I mean, I'm not okay with that. If that were to happen. If
there was an award for the most textbook Hollywood film, Top Gun Maverick
that's
should
the thing.
win it.
Like, well,
it's smashed it.
That's a great thing. Like, Best Picture, does it equal Best Crowd Pleaser? Because then it's a different conversation.
That's what Top Gun Maverick is. Isn't it?
That's what it is. Yeah.
But there's also this factor of, like, the three of us have gathered together knowing in advance that we were going to have this conversation to vote on who we think is the best. And I very much had the intention that I was going to try and watch every film. Now, life's got in the way, I'm busy acting and directing and producing. And so out of these films, I haven't seen Elvis. I haven't seen Top Gun Maverick out of choice. Hashtag Scientology. I haven't seen Avatar, The Way of Water. I haven't yet seen All Quiet on the Western Front, which I'm desperate to. So am I going to vote for any of those films to win Best Picture? No. So there's this thing with the campaigns of like, how can you make people watch your thing? There's an interesting thing about To Leslie, where one thing they felt sort of started to swing the tide is when they uploaded it onto the virtual platform that Academy voters can watch films on. Because suddenly, now I can watch it. Whereas before it was like, I didn't go to South by Southwest Festival, so I didn't see it. No.
Yeah, of course. I mean,
just a supply issue as much as it's anything else. Like,
yes, and I think what I'm saying is it's never about what is the best picture, because what does that mean?
Objectively, that's never the conversation. And I remember like an Academy voter, like a very influential one, going like Anon, the Hollywood Reporter, like a couple of years ago, saying, "Oh, I know for a fact that no one is watching all of the films that they're voting for."
No way.
It's the films that get the biggest, like the most buzz for whatever, and the actors, the performers that get the most buzz. So it's like such a PR thing.
Zeitgeist.
The zeitgeist.
And also they host all these screenings. Like I've been to BAFTA screenings before. And it's not just for fun that, I was at one for Phantom Thread. It's not just for fun that Daniel Day-Lewis and Leslie Manville have shown up, and Johnny Greenwood, It's to get BAFTA voters to come and watch the bloody film, so that then we'll be like, we've seen that one, we really liked it, maybe we'll vote for it, rather than we didn't watch our screener of that because we were busy doing our garden, or actually directing or writing something.
Sounds exhausting.
Well,
Glendon Gleeson actually described
is
it perfectly.
Brendan or Glendon?
Brendan.
Brendan, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, I was just checking.
I think Glendon's a better name though.
I don't know why I said Glendon. Sorry, Glendon. It's Brendan. He described it perfectly the other day where he said, I've spent more time talking about this bloody film than actually, playing in that film. Which is like the PR. It takes a lot more time, compared to shooting the
I
film.
think that with judging films, we should wait 10 years. Because that's the real measure of
I love that.
banging cinema.
I love that.
So are we going to nail our thingies to colours to the mast?
Okay. Well, I think you should go first.
Yeah, we should do a quick fire. Okay, start with Best Picture.
I've got a feeling Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Who should win?
I'm going to use this to talk about Triangular Sadness, which I loved.
I love
Triangular Sadness. Interesting, my girlfriend saw it recently. Thought it was all right. And I think context is so important. You and I think, both saw it at the London Film Festival. I think we both saw a press and industry screening, which were absolutely packed. I was very lucky to get in. No, showing off. But and I was sat on the front row, so close to the screen. Everyone was laughing. There'd been this buzz of like, oh, it's a good film. I'd seen his previous two films.
Graham Norton was sitting just one row behind.
Ruben and I, we chat on Instagram every now and again. But that was my context. Her context was people had said, oh my God, this film's great. You're going to love it. She'd seen the trailer. And we'll talk about this with Banshees in a bit. The trailer's basically you just watch the entire film, And she watched it on a computer, tiny computer. She paused it a couple of times, went to the loo, watched it the next morning.
Yeah.
Very different context. But for me, Triangle of Sadness, I loved it. And
I agree with you. I think Everything Everywhere will win. Even though, I hear Christopher's point about maybe being a bit of a wild card for people, but I think people have kind of drunk the Kool-Aid with Everything Everywhere. 100% would give it Triangle of Sadness. Has something to say, it's provocative, it's different, it's an actual achievement. It's a cinematic achievement. So I'm with you.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I loved Everything Everywhere All at Once. I'm very happy for it to win because I loved it in a very different way. I just don't want to waste my should and my will.
Best Director.
Best Director, where are you?
Daniels?
List.
Everything Everywhere.
Oh, that'd be sort of great, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Because what a directing achievement that was. Yeah.
I would give it to Todd Field, as also Christopher calls it. I thought Tar was so beautifully directed. Like, I don't know. I was very moved by it throughout. Yeah, but that's just me. I don't think it's going to win. I think it's probably going to be Spielberg or Daniels. But Best Actor, Brendan Fraser, I'm hearing from people.
I think he's going to get it. I think it's going to be American. And I think with the BAFTAs, using my psychic powers, because when you're listening to this, the BAFTAs will already have been decided. I think there's a chance that it will be Bill Nighy or Paul Mescal. I think Bill Nighy, or maybe even Colin. But I think the Oscars are going to go for an American. Actually, Brendan Fraser, he's Australian. I feel Brendan Fraser, partly because of the story behind the performance, plus the performance, which I think is great.
Wow, okay.
Canadian American.
Yeah,
my spider senses were not
very
tingling.
Canadian. He's very Canadian. Yeah, I'm with you. I think Brendan will win. In my opinion, Colin Farrell should win. I love his performance. I don't know why. I think it takes a lot of skill to play a character like that. It's actually very difficult.
I think we can count out Bill Nighy and Paul Mescal just because of
of course.
You need a sort of critical mass.
And Austin Butler someone said, Joe in her comments said Austin Butler will win Best Actor. I don't see that coming, but I think his PR tour really hurt him with the whole method actor sort of thing. And how he's still stuck with the Elvis accent, but I don't know.
Oh, he got trapped in the Elvis accent.
Yeah, he's like tortured artist syndrome. But
it's the one that I haven't seen yet out of the five.
To go on record, I loved his performance.
I've heard great things.
He's incredible, but I mean, it's also like, I don't know. I think, as I said, I think what he's done with like going on every single PR show has kind of.
And as well, like who's voting here? It's not the only public vote is the Rising Star bit, the BAFTAs.
Sure, yeah.
None of the rest of it's public vote.
Best Actress. So the majority of our listeners are calling Kate Blanchett to be the witness. I think Michelle Yeoh is still very up in the running.
I'd like to see that.
I would love to see Michelle. I could see Kate winning that one, unfortunately. So, I mean, I'm happy with both, but...
Team Michelle.
Team Michelle. Team Michelle. Mrs. earned it. Best Supporting Angela Bassett. Most people, a couple of people said Carrie Condon from Banshees, very much deserved.
I think it's wide open, but I'm going to go with Jamie Lee Curtis.
Wow. Okay.
I think she
Everything
might
Everywhere.
get it.
You remember that? Yeah. She was in the top.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Totally forgot about her.
Yeah.
She's great. She's fun. She's popular.
Well, I go straight to Fish Called Wonder every time. Amazing.
It was amazing. Yeah. Love it. And Best Supporting, I think Hwai Kwan is pretty locked for Everything Everywhere.
I would love to see Barry Keoghan win. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful moment.
Definitely,
that he's got
agreed.
in that film.
I would be happy with both. I thought Key brought a lot of heart to Everything Everywhere. You know, the husband, you remember? But yeah, Barry, you're right. He was just incredible in Everything Everywhere. I'm gonna just close this segment with Jay's prediction, who said, "No one will get slapped owing to the Academy making everyone wear black ties and absorbing balls to keep out of to keep everyone out of arm's reach." I think this prediction wins the segment by far.
Wait, was last year's Oscar?
Oh yeah, that's Will Smith.
The slap.
Yeah, yeah, it was last year.
Shit, that feels like longer.
Yeah,
I mean, how are they going to top that?
I have no idea. Get everyone absorbing balls and black ties. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much for sending your predictions. We're going to have a look back on on them once we have the winners. Let's take a quick break and we'll be back with our final scene.
Oh, look, a message from our sponsor.
G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it.
Nah, yo, hold my poodle. Hey, yo, what's up? Y'all got a problem? Y'all want some of this?
Without much further ado,
here we go again.
Okay, so we're back. So today we're going to talk about Martin McDonagh's The Banshees of Inisherin. The film has already won 3 Golden Globe Awards, including the one for Best Picture in the musical and comedy category that I know Simon, Aids and I disagree on because you think it's a comedy and I think it's a tragedy.
Yeah, very true.
But it has also scored 9 Oscar nominations. What makes you think it's a comedy, Simon?
I watched this film at 8:30 a.m. in the morning.
It's one of these morning views.
Yeah, it was awful.
It was sort of horrific. It was at London Film Festival. It was in one of the big Odeons, surrounded by press and industry people. And I was about to get in a car to go to a costume fitting. And people were laughing. People found it funny. And I found it funny. Yeah. So I think he's got a really dark sense of humour.
I agree. I also feel like that is his saddest film to date as well. Which I feel like the tragedy and the melancholy of the film overpowers the humor that you see in Bruges or
Would you
even
accept
Seven Psychopaths.
Best musical or tragic comedy as a category?
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I could see the tragic comedy. Happening. So, okay, from what I've seen online, the ending of the film have had people kind of perplexed on first viewing. So we are here to dissect it. But first, let me quickly sum up the plot for us, as I usually do with these dodgy plots that I find online. Okay. This is a difficult one, but I'll try. On a fictional Irish island in the early 1920s called Inisherin, 2 men find themselves at perplexing odds. Porrick, do we say?
Porrick.
Okay, porrick? Whatever. Yeah, it sounds like porridge. Colin Farrell is at a loss when his closest friend, Colm, Brendan Gleeson, gives him the cold shoulder at their local pub for no apparent reason. When Porrick asks Colm what he's done to upset him, Colm declares he hasn't done anything. He just doesn't want to be friends with him anymore. Disbelievingly, Porrick attempts to rekindle their friendship, but this results in a drastic response from Colm. In order to show Porrick how serious the matter is, Colm promises to cut off one of his own fingers every time Porrick speaks to him. Their feud escalates until nearly everyone in Inisherin is pulled into the fray, resulting in an unresolved dispute that satisfies no one. Okay, Yeah, I mean, we talked about this prior to recording, but I have to admit, like, this was a tough one for me to prep because I felt like there were so many story arcs that had to come to a close for the final scene to kind of make sense. So I'm assuming that if you're still listening, you've seen the film, so we don't have to set this whole thing up. Like, we can talk about the actual feud and how it escalates. We can talk about Combs' fucking motivations and what makes someone cut his own fingers. We could talk about the donkey. We could talk about the sister, Dominic. Like, there's a lot going on. But, like, all of these things culminate in a way that lead up to the final scene. So let's start by the climax of the third act, which will kind of help us get to the ending. Why does Porrick burn down Colm's house?
So his beloved donkey has died because... Yeah, so his beloved donkey has died because Colm has turned up at his house previously, chopped off all his fingers, chucked them at the front door by that point, yep. And little Jenny has shown up and had a bit of a nibble on some of the fingers and choked to death.
That is a tragic accident, I think.
It's that is very, I mean, I think this is where things started going downhill for me, where I started like really crying. It's interesting because up until that point, it felt like the feud was kind of one-sided on Colm's part. And that's when Porrick is like, fuck this. I'm in, like, I need to fight back. And it's like we witness a major shift in his character. Up until that point, he's been this super nice, quote unquote, character.
It's just one moment in the pub where he sort of stands up to him and there's like, oh, he liked that, so maybe I should do that more.
Yeah, that's true.
But other than that, he's been pretty
that's true.
easygoing.
So for me, it's almost like this is, I don't know, like this act of him literally burning down Combs' house kind of signifies there is no hope for reconciliation. Because how can you take that back in a way? It's almost like irreparable damage to each other that they're doing.
They start the scene, or there's some point in the scene, they're like, oh, you know, they seem to have gone quiet over on the mainland, not so much shooting. And, you know, and then Colin Farrell says, well, yeah, we both know they're going to start again soon enough because there are some things that, you know, there's no coming back from. I really feel that I would appreciate this film so much more if I was Irish. I'm sure that there's a sort of symbolism to it, and rewatching that final scene, I think I saw more than I saw originally. When I originally saw it, I was loving the film, having a great time, really enjoying it, looking forward to the ending, and then the credits started rolling, and I was like, wait, where's the third act? That's my hot take on it.
It's almost the futility of retributions. You know, when you feel like deep injustice and then you retaliate, it just keeps making everything worse. And that's what this film like shows, I think, really well.
Yeah, of course. Because I mean, to give some context, because I don't feel like people outside of the UK really know or can grasp what the metaphor is all about. Like, I've interestingly enough, I've only seen that kind of metaphor to the Irish Civil War being taken upon from British critics. I don't see that kind of commentary with American outlets, which is interesting. So for context, obviously I can't speak to what happened because I have zero history knowledge, but my understanding is that the war that was taking place at the time between the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland was, as Simon said, it was futile. It was kind of nonsensical. And I can speak from like someone coming from Greece. Like, we also had a Greek civil war. Like,
Cyprus.
No. Like communists and post-Nazi Greek era, weird as fuck. But very similar principles in the sense of you have so much collateral damage, which to me, Dominique is part of that. Like, it kind of signifies the collateral damage and all of the people that kind of get, in the crossfire, end up in the crossfire for whatever reason. And then you have Colm and Porrick kind of represent North and South. And they find themselves at opposing sides of the war for reasons that I find in that final scene where they're by the shore and they have this final conversation, they even fail to understand why things ended up the way they were. It's like, how do we even get here? Like,
But that's valid in that film because
of course,
the beginning of the film, Cole never says why, or there's no really good reason for his.
Which is what usually happens with wars. Like, it's not like you don't attack a country because you don't attack someone and you give them here's all of the reasons I'm doing so. You just do it. And then years later, months later, decades later, you figure out, this is why did we get here? So I don't know.
So it's like the idea that you've literally forgotten why this whole thing began.
Exactly. Yeah. And it all started from, I don't know, I think maybe we could even talk about the concept of male friendship even, where it's very hard to talk about your feelings. And supposedly from what we've seen in the film, Colm started, struggle with depression. And it was easier for him to just cut his best friend out of his life rather than maybe even speak to someone because there's no one to talk to, really, when you think about it. So I don't know. I just found that final scene very sad. And going back to your point, Simon, I think Martin McDonagh has that kind of. He does that with his final scenes. Yeah. It's the same thing with Three Billboards. It's so like abrupt the way he ends his films.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you have any thoughts on why he does that, or like what he's trying to get the viewer to think about.
Yeah, I wonder if it is something about what we're talking about conflict, and that life isn't, sort of neat, tied up Hollywood ending, that there is mess. But for me, rewatching, and I can't remember how I felt when I first watched this scene in Inisherin, they are sort of weirdly like both reconciled, and that seems as though the feud is going to continue. It's a sort of unclear like where it's going to go next, but there's all this stuff about, thanks for looking after my dog anytime. And they both it seems to mean a lot to Porrick, at least, that moment. And so there's a sort of weird thing. And there's this very similar thing, like you're saying, Three Billboards, where, Sam Rockwell and Frances McDormand are in the car together. And she says, it was me that burnt the station down, giving you those injuries. And he was like, well, yeah, obviously. I mean, who else was it going to be? And they're sort of reconciled. And then there's this thing of like, well, are we really going to kill this guy? Is that a good idea? And they're both like, yeah, I'm not sure. Let's work it out. And he seems to love that sort of ending, because for me, watching those two scenes today together next to each other, they basically seem like the same scene to me.
Right. Yeah. That's a very good point. Because, when we go back to the very final scene, which is basically these two by the shore having that kind of last conversation, from what we remember, Colm kind of takes a step back and he's like, maybe we shouldn't even have fought in the first place. He kind of retracts on his original, proposition to him, like, oh yeah, let's not be friends anymore. And then Colin Farrell's character says something very interesting. Only if you were in that house that was burning down, that feud would be over. Oh
yeah, he says something like, Brendan Gleeson says, we're quits now, I guess.
Yeah, as in like, this is over, right?
Like, no, mate, you're not dead.
As in, I guess we're even. I mean, that was what Brett...
That just speaks to the surreal nature of the film. Like, then Porrick has committed murder. Like, that's nuts. That's like a whole different ballgame. That's like not real life. So that moment, that took me out of the film. I was like, this is a kind of fairy tale. This isn't real.
Unless you have nothing else to lose. And Porrick has lost his sister, he's lost his best friend.
He's moved away. I mean...
No, as in like, for me, it's more like at this point, both of them are broken AF. And at this point, like, Porrick wouldn't care about going to jail.
Do you know what? The image I've got in my head is of Colm being in the pub, holding his violin with one hand, and then the bleeding stubs of his fingers. Just like, that's just that's not possible, is it? Like that's
It's surreal. It's very surreal.
yeah. So like that's not reality. So therefore that scene from then on led me to like feel more like removed from the reality of the film. The fact that some guy is in the pub conducting some young dudes playing violins with like a stub of a hand like bleeding out, like that's weird. Like
the whole conceit of him cutting his fingers off. I remember the cinema.
Is that
I was like,
possible?
what the fuck are they? What, this is actually happening?
Yeah.
It was like, oh, we're in a really different film to what I thought we were in.
Yeah, and to that point, I was like, oh, now we're in metaphor. Like now it's a bit different. Like we're in a bit of a surreal netherworld kind of thing. Did you feel like that, Sophie?
It felt very metaphorical to me, the whole fingers thing. I weirdly, I could relate to that.
Right.
In conjunction with him feeling very depressed, because I'm someone who likes to write, and that comes with a certain level of torment sometimes when something is in your brain and you can't quite put it on paper, but you're so desperate on putting your, for lack of a better word, art out, but you want to put something on paper. So I, like, quite frankly, I've had, I want to say nightmares, but they were dreams of like, oh my God, it would be such a relief if I had my brain removed from my, like, if I had my mind removed from my brain tomorrow, or like my ability to write tomorrow, because then I wouldn't have tormented myself over writing. So it's almost like that kind of, it's a stereotype of tormented artist sort of thing, where you kind of obsess over the idea of creating art, where there is kind of a sense of twisted relief in taking the very thing that can make you create art going away, because then you can be at least calm. There's nothing
Column.
Yeah. As in, like, I almost feel like calm is almost like he's more chill at the end of the film in that final scene, because he has literally no way of creating art anymore. And that stops his torture and
feel
depression.
like you're really reaching with that, because
Potentially.
for me, the Colm character just didn't have enough reason for his actions in that film, because it was never explained in the first place, which maybe is what depression is.
Yeah.
But it just didn't have enough meat on it for me to get behind.
So that's what Brendan actually said in an interview recently, where he said, when I first watched that film, I was like, fuck this character, like I can't even defend him myself. I thought he was very unsympathetic towards his own character. But when he had to watch this film again and again and again, and I think this is the kind of film that is worthy of a second viewing, and I think maybe Simon, you benefited from that, from like at least the final scene. You kind of understand that he's not like, there are a lot of layers to him. So like first viewing, I was Team Porrick 100%, and then second viewing I was like,
what does it
fuck
have
this
to
guy?
be
No, fuck this guy. Like niceness is different to kindness, and I don't see that. And I was almost like more empathetic towards Colm. Because of that kind of tormented artist, I can see why, like, you would want to, we're fucking tired of the 10 people you have to converse with for the rest of your life in the same island. You're like, fuck you. The whole fingers thing is complex. And it's definitely, like, to your point, surreal. But I can see the temptation to just let go of it all by just, I don't know, like self-mutilating, I guess, which is extreme, but I can see that.
Maybe the chopping off of the fingers is like a metaphor for what it's like for British people to end a friendship and be honest about their feelings.
That's what I told my best friend. Like, okay, no offense to, the men in the room and the men who are listening, but I was like, oh my God, it would have been so much simpler to just tell him, to just talk to someone as opposed
Simon
to going...
H., have you ever had a situation where you'd have rather cut off your fingers and actually told the truth?
Well, I don't know. There is something about this, because I'm sort of a bit baffled as to why this film is so popular.
Yeah, I'm the same as you. Yeah.
Like I said, I loved the experience of watching it, and then there was the moment where I was like, oh, the credits. Hang on, where's the rest of the film? But I guess it does speak to something about friendship. It's a really, really, really simple story of like, I don't want to be friends with you anymore. And that's it. And I'm sure we've all had that with people sometimes. We're like, you know what, I'm just done with this relationship. And then it's really taken to the extreme. But it is puzzling. And back to this final scene, because Colm, I agree with you, Simon, that at the start, or maybe it was you, Sophie, who said this at the start, it's like, he's like, cool, we're done. Great, And he's more chilled than he was before. But now Porrick has taken over and is like, nah, we're not done. And I was waiting for the final showdown, which didn't come, but that's maybe how Martin McDonagh wants us to see the world.
Well, on that note, though, you know how in the very last shots we get McCormick, like Mrs. McCormick.
Yeah, we have
background,
the Banshee.
Who's the Banshee?
Oh, she's sitting on the chair.
Yeah, so she's a creepy old woman.
That's the penultimate shot, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Of her watching the two and watching Porrick walking away.
Right, which I think is very interesting because, like, again, I had to look this up. I'm not trying to play smart. But like in Irish folklore, like Banshee kind of signals impending tragedy and death. So her looking at them too at the very final scene, I wonder whether it signifies the friend of their friendship or as simple as that, because she already predicted quote unquote 2 deaths, Jenny and Dominic, really. And her kind of be like, I'm watching you, like at these two. I don't know. I just think there is something there, and I don't think it's over for them, because you're right. Like Simon, you mentioned that it felt very unresolved, and like it's only the beginning.
Yeah.
In a way.
Maybe he's setting up for Banshees of Inisherin too.
Ooh. He would never.
What would the subtitle be for that?
He would never. But I think I agree. It's more going back to what you said, Simon, in terms of like how all of it has been futile, and like everything is shit.
It seems to me as well that they seem the most resolved in the whole film. Like they seem like they could be really good mates now. Now that Colin Farrell's like, I'm gonna kill you, and he's like, cool, sounds good. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like now Brendan Gleeson's got what he wanted.
He respects him more, I think.
Yeah, because he's being a bit more real with him.
The ending should have been a massive folk song piss up in the pub. And like it should have ended up on a massive tune. Like he should have got his fingers back.
How would Spielberg have done
cracked out his violin. It should have been a song or something completely mad.
I think that would be Martin 10, 15 years ago, but I do feel like this is his most accomplished film to date. And it's because we talked about this earlier, like Simon H., how he's his filmography, 7 Psychopaths in Bruges, 3 Billboards. It really tackles like male, toxicity and
what we were saying
losers,
before,
really.
Like men are this walking powder keg of repressed emotions.
Yeah,
and that's
it's exactly that.
That's quoting Robert Webb.
Yeah, it's exactly that. However, I think with this film, I can see the director's eye being a lot more empathetic towards his characters compared to what he did with In Bruges, which was basically look at these losers just being horrible to each other.
But the thing in this situation that I probably haven't accounted for is the fact that they're on this tiny island,
of course,
with very little opportunity to mix with people. He hasn't got any other opportunities to have friends with. So like he's like Colm is like really important to him, I guess, and vice versa. Essentially.
Yeah.
For me, the feeling that I got with this, as I said, was whereas the feeling I got with 3 Billboards was like, what? Oh, that's the end. And I was like, it was a sort of satisfying thing of like, of course, we don't need to know whether they kill this guy or not, because all that matters is that she's sort of found peace with him. And I didn't quite get that from this.
I personally was Team Dominic and Team Chauvin. And they both either fucked
off
or died.
Well, they're the only one that could articulate how they felt and stuff. So.
Yeah. I think I'm a Chauvin. I think I would get the fuck off this island.
Siobhan.
Yeah. What?
Siobhan.
Whatever. Like get a library job, whatever.
Some Irish.
Yeah.
Pronunciation.
Yeah, or kill myself. I can see that, but probably not. Okay. Cool. On that very fun note, I think we saw the ending again. Simon, thank you so much for, for joining us. I feel like you need to come back very soon.
I'd love
so we
to.
can talk about...
Thanks for having me.
I mean, maybe you can, pick your favorite film or pick your favorite final scene. You can have a thing.
What
you
would,
can
if
come
you
back.
could final scene?
Maybe
to
final
focus on,
scene.
what would it be?
Yeah, the first thing that pops into my mind is the final scene of Atonement, which just had a really big impact on me.
Oh, it did. Yeah. Is that the flooding of the tube station, or is that halfway?
That's part of it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and Vanessa Redgrave.
Amazing scene.
Yeah. Let me have a think. I'll see if I've got a better one.
I mean, I love Atonement.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that film.
Yeah. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram and on Twitter. My handle, embarrassingly, is the Simon Haines, Haines.
Official.
I know. Someone told me that was what you should do on Instagram. I was like, okay, fine.
We will also link to your socials in our show notes. Well, okay, we have come to the end of another episode of That Final Scene. If you're a new listener, hi, we're so glad we're here. Make sure you subscribe to our show wherever you're listening. We've got episodes on Everything Everywhere All at Once and Top Gun Maverick, so check this out. And before we go, we have one favor to ask. If you enjoyed this episode, please give our show a 5-star rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It helps our show quite a lot, and it's also a nice boost for us. So thanks for listening. We will be back in 2 weeks with The Sixth Sense, featuring the incredible, legendary, much loved Bruce Willis. We will catch you next time. Goodbye.
Did you like it? Did you like that?
Did I like it? I loved it.
I had no idea you could milk a cat.
I have nipples, Greg. Could you milk me?
Good morning.
Morning. Good morning.
Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.